This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Are you sorry? Are you heartily sorry for all of your sins? Well, it doesn't matter. For now is the time of your just punishments. Hello, heroes, and welcome once again to Just Punishments, the Capes and Lunatics Southgate Media joyful review of The Punisher on Netflix. Tonight's episode, Season 2, Episode 12, the penultimate episode, Take a Drink, Collision Course. We always take a drink every time we say penultimate. It's our favorite drinking game here on
Right on. And I would say welcome heroes and villains, because who needs more forgiveness and more repentance than villains, right?
Yes, and sometimes heroes, because there's always those unintended consequences. Tonight's episode is called Collision Course. Buckle up. Mahoney and Frank are about to take a ride to remember. Amy makes an entrance. Russo cashes out. And Madani comes clean to Krista. Our director this week is Stephen K. Jerry Conway, John Romita Sr., of course, getting our Marvel Created By credits along with Ross Andrew. Steve Lightfoot gets our Created By credit, as always. Dario Scartapane gets our Written By this week. Angela Lamagna, always doing hard work as our executive story editor, and doing the harder work. Our regular story editor is Ken Christensen, hardest working man in show business this week. Okay, yes. So welcome back to this episode. This takes up pretty much right where we left off in the last episode with Mahoney has Frank handcuffed in the back of the ambulance and has him in a very awkward position because he's like standing up, handcuffed to the bar as they're driving down the road. So, which of course is a good way to keep Frank off balance, you know. Which is kind of what you need with Frank. You don't want him sitting there to think too much. And I really love just how much way past up to here that Mahoney has had it with Frank and Madani and everybody else. Frank, I don't care what deals you made with Frank or with Madani or Homeland or the Illuminati. I'm taking you in.
And what's funny is, like, in that moment, Pilgrim shows up and he has had just about enough with everybody. He is, oh my God, he's in a bad way, and he's going to take it all out on anybody that's in his way.
Yeah, well, and this is what I think is kind of the beauty of it, is that he is in this spot where he knows he's no longer on the side of the righteous. And truth be told, I think he has internalized that the Providence wasn't, him finding the girl. It was the Punisher finding him. And
do you think he realizes that?
I think he knows that. You know what? I think he still really wants to be a righteous man.
Right, but if he's come to that realization, that means he's come to confront a truth about himself that he has tried to manipulate and cover up with something else for a very long time, trying to be someone that he knows deep down he is not, which is probably why he was into the, I wouldn't call it masochistic, what's the word they use for self-flagellation, or like that guilt that you try to assuage?
Well, that would be masochism, yeah. Sadism is when you're harming.
No. But I mean, there's a religious context, word that has a religious context attached to it as well that sort of implies that same thing, without bringing a sexual gratification aspect into it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, not even going to go into that as to how much I'll say you usually don't do things unless you want to do them. That's all I'm going to say.
Right. But the impetus could be guilt, or the impetus could be pleasure, or I mean, they can be conjoined as well, I guess. But
I mean, if you're going to believe what the Marquis de Sade says, is that basically people who like the flagellation do it because they like the flagellation. The
right.
people that are so guilty. Oh, let me beat me with whips and chains, and it's like, well,
Right.
as the bear said, this isn't really about the sport anymore, is it?
Right, so that moment crashing down on him is doubly bad because it's sort of a revelation that he's been trying to sweep under the rug for a long time. I really am a bad person. I really do deserve way worse than the masochism I have delivered to myself. I am really a bad person.
But I think, and I think this is sort of how Frank sleeps at night. Is that there are a lot of bad things I did, but I always felt I had this moral code. I always felt that, this is for the best because the people that I'm serving are righteous people. It's basically like every Cold War spy movie. It's like
right, but he's got to be realizing now that maybe Frank is better than him.
Well, he
than
does.
The people. Right, that's got to be crushing to him because the man who he thinks is the lowest of the low maybe is even better than him. So what does that make me?
Well, exactly. Well, and I think that highlights what I think is the framing device for this entire series arc, which is that there's all these people who think they're better than someone else, who think they are good people because of whoever has told them they are good. And I think this is what's with Billy Russo as well in this story, which is that Krista has told him he is a good man. And so he is going to forgive himself for all of his sins because Krista, who he's trusting to be the moral authority, has told him he's good and told him he can walk away from things. And he's almost, and honestly, it's like, and I kind of feel like Krista, or not Krista, but Russo at the end of this, I mean, not the very end, but just prior to that, he is like where Pilgrim is at the start of this, which is at the start of this is Pilgrim realizing, is feeling like I am righteous, I am doing the Lord's work, I'm doing the right thing in this situation. Yes, there is danger, there's collateral, and there's death, and there are these bad things, but these bad things are being visited upon people who have chosen to live bad lives, And so what I do and what I choose, it is for this greater good.
Right.
Now, Russo is in a similar spot where he's saying, my sins have been forgiven because I have proven, and it's kind of a little bit of a more nihilistic view of it. I have proven that Frank Castle isn't better than me, although he actually never did that because he actually shot the ladies. But it's like I've broken Frank Castle. Now I can walk away from him. I don't have to live my life in the shadow of Frank Castle.
Right, and it's also sort of making the choice that he feels Frank is incapable of making, of walking away, of letting go of the hurt and letting go of the pain and letting go of the anger. Yes. He sort of it does an about face in that sense where he was completely inconsolable, and now he's like, okay, I'm willing to walk away, and he finds a bit of peace in that. And they say, he's still alive. His goons tell him we should go after him. He's like, let him go. You got the money. Yeah, I gave you new lives. I'm giving you the thing I have just found, absolution and a path away from this and freedom, and I'm going to take it.
But the important thing to remember is he only is willing to walk away because he feels he's on top. Because he feels he beat the Punisher.
See, I feel like I can't really think that he would really believe that he actually did, or at least maybe he got a bit of vengeance that he brought some misery on him too. But I think the bigger motivator was Krista herself, just saying, hey, I think that had a lot to do with it.
Well, I think that this season is very much informed by the biblical story of Job. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the idea is that Job is a righteous man, and he's
Through all the trials.
yeah, well that was the point, is that before the trials he was very righteous,
Right.
and then Satan says to God, well, you can't say that Job is righteous. Job is righteous because you've never challenged him.
Right.
You've blessed him and blessed him and blessed him because of his righteousness. You take away righteousness from this man, and
Oh, you take away the blessings.
oh yeah, sorry, you take away the blessings from this man, and then we'll see how righteous he is. We'll see how long he goes before he curses God.
Right.
And of course, the story of Job is that Job, through his righteousness, says, no, no, no. God has, these things are visited upon me, and it is, I don't like it, but the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to curse God for it, because, you know, there has to be more to my life than just the fact that I was wealthy and had, beautiful wives and great kids and a lot of money and stuff like that. I should be able to endure this tragedy now, since I have avoided tragedy for so long in my life.
See, that's an interesting thing. I mean, not to be disrespectful about it, but maybe the story could have been told better if he had something, or maybe I don't know the story well enough. Maybe he had something that gave him joy throughout all the misery that he was put through.
Well,
but
yeah.
I don't seem like he didn't have a higher purpose. He was just a drone, basically a really good drone with programming that was incorruptible by the virus of conscious thought or whatever. That's how he's painted as, not necessarily the way that you said. Okay, I'm still doing good things. I still have something that brings me joy, even if my wealth is gone, even if this. At least I have something to be proud of. But it doesn't seem like he has anything except a false label to take pride in. No.
Well, I mean, if you really want to, I mean, so there's two takes on this story that we can give. One is that Job is righteous because he believes in God, in a storyline where we know God is real.
Okay, right.
So if we take from the fact that Job's right, Job is right not to curse God, because God is still real, and God is still, the omnipotent creator of all things. And who am I to sit here and be all mad about it? But I've often felt that there was, to me, and this is just me as a storyteller, I've always felt that the character of Satan is much more important in the story of Job. Because I feel that Satan as a character, and I've had people tell me, Satan is actually a very minor character in this story. You shouldn't elevate him in this way. But I say, but you have to look at the greater context. If you have Satan as the guy who's questioning, Satan is the loser in it. Because Satan is the one who says, man cannot be righteous if he's challenged. Man is too weak to be righteous.
Right. And what's funny is the argument from the human perspective in this story is voiced by Satan, not by Job. The questions that humanity asks are voiced in this situation by the devil. So the devil is voicing all the opinions that a real human would have. The real human response to something like this is not voiced by Job, I don't think, because a normal person would say, hey, should I really be doing this? Or blah, blah, blah. These are the questions. So I think the perspective of us is voiced by the devil, no?
Well, what I will say is, and I think this is where we get into the righteousness of the story, is that the point of this is, do you have a moral code you cling to at the end of the day? Is there a moral code, and is that moral code actually righteous? So it's twofold, and that's the thing. It's like Pilgrim has a moral code, but it is not a righteous moral code.
Right. But then the other aspect of it for me, sorry to belabor this point that's sort of, an aside from the actual story, but it's fascinating to me that is he not a hostage in that situation? If he knows truly that God is real, that his faith is not based on faith, it's based on knowing that God is real and he can do all these things to you, would it not be the correct action for a hostage to take, to bear all these things and not complain? Whereas faith without knowledge would be the true test of whether you are righteous or not.
Well, but he does have faith. That's the thing, is he does not know God is real. He knows. So the point of faith is that you know this thing without evidence, and that he knows this thing without evidence is why he maintains his faith, because he says,
Okay, so he doesn't this isn't like biblical times where God comes down and talks to people and shows himself, or
no. There's nothing there. There's just him living his life, and the reality is that in it, all of Job's friends come to him and they say, Job, just how can you not curse God for all that you've gone through? You've had a really bad year. And he's like, yeah, but I've had good years, and this is my bad year, and at the end of the day, I'm not going to curse God because of it, because for whatever is happening, I have to believe that there is a greater purpose for it. And so
it almost makes Job sound like the citizens of North Korea who have to sort of pretend to go along with this narrative that the leader can dunk the basketball and he's the fittest, most impossibly beautiful human being that's ever been.
Well, that of course is the difference between a true moral code and one that's based on stories of men. And that's
fear.
the thing. Well, no. So, for example, if you are a citizen of North Korea, you may very well feel that the world is out to get North Korea. That your leader, your fearless leader, is the only thing that's keeping you guys from getting either annexed by China or South Korea, and much more likely that you're going to get annexed by China, which is a whole bag of hammers over in Korea. They do not want to be even though they are a satellite of China, they do not want to be ruled by China. In the same way that, the U.S. wouldn't want to be ruled by Canada. Or
well, that might not be that bad.
Well, it wouldn't be that bad for you and me, but
fair enough.
But if someone imposed the rule of Canada on the United States, we probably would feel a little, why is the Queen on our money kind of feeling. And vice versa, if Canada ever feels that the U.S. is pushing itself too much on top of them, then Canada does feel that we may be an ally of you, but we are not your subject. And so essentially what we're looking at here is Castle has a moral code that he does not want to break because he knows right from wrong. Even though he does awful things that he feels guilt and anger and fear about, he knows that at his heart, what he does is for a purpose. At least now he's trying to make up for it. He's trying to do good, and he's trying to have these rules that he lives by. Now, when we look at Pilgrim and we look at Rousseau did not have a moral compass. He saw the benefit of Rousseau for Rousseau's own self. That was himself before that. Now he has a moral compass, but it is at its core arguably a false moral compass, because it's someone who is just as messed up as him, who is likewise manipulating and making these choices and these judgments to cause harm to others, just to aid Rousseau, just to give Rousseau an easy path to redemption rather than a difficult one. By contrast, you have Pilgrim, who has felt he was righteous because he has lived a righteous life, but now, he had rejected his former life. So he's basically there's this triple parallel. Where all of these people can be judged in relation to the moral code of the Punisher. And it sounds funny to say the Punisher has a moral code, but he does in fact have one.
Indeed.
In fact, when we see this here, when he's in the back of the ambulance and he's just like, I'll be honest with you, Mahoney, right now I'd be fine just to get a good night's sleep,
Really?
And when he saves Mahoney from the ambulance after it crashes, and I still don't necessarily know how Pilgrim got her way, but we'll let that slide. But and Mahoney pulls his gun on him, and he just says to him, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
If this is how it goes, this is how it goes. But I got things I got to do, and I'm going to walk my walk. And If you got to shoot me, you got to shoot me, and I'm not going to
It
tell you
almost,
you're wrong.
yeah, it almost seems like he's resigned to. He just wants to sleep. He's like, I know that my code will not allow me to sit down until the job is done. The only way I might find some peace is if you do shoot me. Say, hey, maybe you'll be doing me a favor. You know, it's.
Yeah, well, but even beyond that, he also won't shoot Mahoney because Mahoney is a righteous man.
Yeah.
He's not gonna. So he's not gonna kill Mahoney. He's not gonna stop Mahoney, and he knows, quite frankly, Mahoney's got the gun on him, and he's in no real position to defeat Mahoney. Because if he lunges towards
he doesn't
Mahoney,
have
Mahoney's
the right to.
Well, but even if he had the right to, he doesn't have the right.
According to his code, he can't do that. You know, yeah.
Basically, it's like this: he might be able to disarm Mahoney without killing him, because he's certainly done that before. But he can't. He can't do that without Mahoney shooting him anyway. Because if he goes to lunge towards Mahoney now, Mahoney's going to take the shot.
Right.
And it's like, at this point, you know what? If you really feel you have to shoot me, you can shoot me in the back. But I got to do what I got to do. I just shaved your leg, which I didn't have to do.
Yeah.
But I know that you are a righteous man, and I'm not going to end. I'm not going to dirty my soul more with the blood of a righteous man at me.
Right.
And, and then when we look at people, and we look at people like Pilgrim, he probably felt he had a similar code, that he would not bloody his hands with the righteous. And we see, although at the same time, when it came down to fighting the cops, he was like, well, you aren't being as righteous as I think you should be being.
Right, but isn't that sort of like the end all be all sort of ultimate excuse in Christianity, is that everybody is a sinner? So if you really wanted to, you could say, I have the right to kill everybody because everybody does, Well,
actually, the opposite is true. I mean, if you really want to be into it, it's like, well, everyone's a sinner, including myself, meaning I have no moral right.
Right. No, but he sort of glossed over that and
that's
tucked that fact right under the rug pretty conveniently.
Yeah, because he feels his righteousness is of a level, but that is what has been breaking down, because he realizes when these people who are trying to, not for nothing, protect their son from what is a relatively minor scandal.
Well, I would caution against calling it protecting their son. They're caging. They're protecting themselves and their legacy by caging their son.
And that is what this is, and that's what it's about. It's about finding the fact that moral people, and I think, when we do get Senator Schultz, who has been, picked up by the Punisher.
Poor guy.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? Not for nothing, he should have asked more questions.
Sure. Willfully oblivious he was.
For what it's worth, at the end of the day, that is the true way you have a moral compass, is you ask questions. Because Frank is many times, when Frank says I'm out, it's because he's asking questions when he tells his wife he's out, when he's not going to go back. And then when his wife and kid are killed, he has to bring his justice to the world, but at the same time, he is careful to know that the people he's taking out aren't people who are. He is making sure of his victims, At least one hopes he is, and that's but that's always the question in any of these things: is how do you truly be the righteous fist of judgment without without overstepping your bounds. And for what it's worth, when we get to the second season of The Punisher, it is no longer about him being the righteous fist of judgment. He's just this man with skills. He's just this man who's trying to live his life. And yeah, he may take out people at the end. And, for what it's worth, at the end, but what he is not looking, that is no longer his reason for existence. He does not exist just to kill. He actually is killing out of defense of someone who maybe is not a morally righteous person themselves, but also not someone deserving of the punishment she's being allotted by these cruel people, by Pilgrim and the Schultzes, and so that is and that is very much what we're dealing with in this story, and this there is so much in the Punisher's final season, I think, and I think we get a lot of it at the head here, and we get this idea at the end, and of course, what I got to say is, Madani is not she is not a righteous person in this. And
Mm-hmm.
we definitely see that when she comes back to Krista, in many ways to sort of confront her about what she has figured out about her. And then, of course, when Krista snaps, and we basically get to see that these two ladies are just as damaged and as troubled as Frank and Russo, but that neither one of them really has the moral compass that Frank has, or um, and we even get to this point where Madani, when she doesn't have to, throws Krista out the window.
Man, how much worse can they make her at her job?
Well, you know what?
Ugh. She's a trained FBI agent who can't fight off a psychiatrist.
Well, you know what? Not for nothing. She was doing pretty good fighting off the psychiatrist without having to kill her. But at a certain point, you know what? Maybe first off, I don't know how much FBI agents are necessarily trained in hand to hand. You know, Usually, these people have guns expressly because they're trying to not get into a hand to hand combat. So
That
when it
seems
gets
like a dangerous proposition. No.
but it's. I'm not going to say how much knowledge anybody has on any subject. I can say I can imagine someone being an excellent shootist, but a poor hand-to-hand combatant. And likewise, I have no idea how much hand-to-hand training Krista has. You know, not for
Mm.
no, not for nothing, for someone who is attacking in kind of a rage.
Mm.
You always say, "Oh, you turn their rage against them." It's like, well, maybe, unless of course you got a bunch of rage yourself. So,
Mm.
but what you can definitely say is when she throws Krista out the window, that is something she does intentionally and unnecessarily, just to create a moment. I don't know if that's the writers being lazy or if that's
Mm.
really motivated in her character. I get the feeling it is motivated in her character, that her character just wants revenge against someone, and she knows this person has been hiding Russo, has been manipulating Russo, and she's
And
like,
has been playing her the whole time. She opened up to her. I trusted you. It's sort of that sort of thing
mm-hmm.
too,
Yeah, and that is the conundrum of it.
I mean, for an agent, she's unbelievably easily manipulated.
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's still like a little bit of shell shock from what happened in the last
Well,
season.
yeah. I
And
mean,
maybe this is fallout from that. I guess I can.
for what it's worth, she got shot in the head. And
Mm-hmm.
that does. That you don't take damage to the head without necessarily having some negative consequences. Whether that's in her, rational centers, whether that's in her ability to control her emotions, or whether it's in her ability to peacefully resolve a situation.
Right.
Whatever it is, she's come to this. Uh, we do have uh, I'm trying to think.
Pilgrim showing up to the trailer.
Oh yes, we didn't really talk about that. Yes,
Yeah.
we're jumping back and forth there. Yeah, Pilgrim shows up to
Well,
the trailer, and Curtis is really trying to blow it off. And I got to give Pilgrim credit for again trying to hold himself together. Because, and this is what I'm getting at with Pilgrim, is he knows he's not on the side of righteousness anymore, but he's trying his best to, even as he's trying to sort through what he's working through, arguably to protect his kids, because I think on some level he's thinking, I don't know what these people will do to my kids if I don't do what they say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and suddenly realizes where he's at in truth. And he's trying to defend, and I think that scene with Curtis where he makes the point, look, I want you to know, which is honestly probably not the best answer, but it's like all he can come up with. There's like, there was a time in my life when I was a Nazi, and I would have been more than happy to just shoot you. But I want you to know I'm not a Nazi anymore. So
I might shoot you for other reasons, but it won't be because I hate you for your skin.
Yes, exactly. Which is like, but, and like I said, I think Curtis handles it very well, and I think it actually was working out great until, of course, Amy shows up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, bad time. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Especially because she has to say, "Hey, it's me, Amy," before she walks in, so she doesn't get shot.
Right. No, but to her credit, she again handles this thing very, very well. She escapes somehow.
Oh yeah.
And somehow, and obviously Pilgrim is, over his emotions right now, not in control, which is probably why he doesn't notice that the pictures that they've been after are sitting right there, and he doesn't bother to even look at them.
Yeah, he doesn't really know what to do. And
right.
I think he still has some residuals. Gotta remember he was doing all the cocaine and whatnot.
Right. Indeed.
So he's probably still feeling a little numb. He's probably, and as told by the fact that he gets the leg full of bird shot.
Oh.
And I gotta tell you, man, the clotting factors of people in this universe are just insane. It's like, man, if you don't hit a vein, you can walk away from anything.
And good luck not trying to hit, an artery or something on your thigh.
Yeah. Well, I think this was telegraphed in that, because you see that when she shoots him in the leg, he ducks behind the cabinet, but it's particle board. So the bullet slowed down, so the bird shot slows down, but it still penetrates, but it doesn't get very deep. Is basically what you're looking at there with the bird shot. So.
Yeah, that was a gruesome scene when he's pulling out the pellets.
That was just
but I would say not as hard to watch as Krista slicing Dina's face. That was rough.
Oh. Yeah,
oh man.
But and it's because it's scary.
Yeah.
More than it's actually dangerous, because really, it's got a little. Gives her some scare. Curtis has that same dang scar. No one's complaining about Curtis.
Right. But I love that they took their time with that moment. They really laid into it. I thought that was kind of cool, as hard as it was to watch.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. Frank calls the parents, says he wants to do the exchange. They call, and then again, this is the thing, because I believe this does happen there, where the parents call Pilgrim to say, "You have the girl, right?" It's like, "Yeah, I got the girl, sure." Which also shows how he knows he's just trying to get by now. He's just trying to get by, and that's where we're at. And then the very last scene we get is, and man, I just felt it's like they really made you feel sad for Russo, because it was like, someone kicked that poor puppy. And you forget that puppy killed like hundreds of people prior to this.
Right.
But now he's just a puppy, And he does this whole thing about, I'm moving on, I'm getting my life together, I got a good girl. But it really is just that he never considered that this woman he was pledging himself to was not the moral compass that he needed. And it's kind of interesting. It's like when you think about we think back to Daredevil and Bullseye.
Poindexter, right? Exactly. I was thinking that the whole time. Yeah.
About picking the right moral compass.
Or I mean, at least finding one of your own and not using a proxy from outside of yourself, because that will fail you.
Well, and that is if anything else, that's what we can say about Frank Castle, is he has his own moral compass. He's not relying on either the government to tell him who to kill or any religious figure to tell him who to kill. He's making his choice who to kill.
Right. It's like that Rush song, "No, his mind is not for rent to any god or government."
Exactly. Oh, okay. But he gets his little Dutch irises, and he's walking up there, gives the guy the big tip, and he says, "Oh, way to go, Mr. Blue. That's the kind of customer I like." And he's like, "Yeah, my life is good."
Yeah, and I'm a regular member of society. That was kind of like a regular humdrum moment.
Yeah, he's a big old player again too. It's like, oh, people like the big tips,
Yeah.
and no one's mentioning his face all cut up, so it's lovely and it's great. And then he sees Krista on the ground, and that's where this story ends. And oh man, I gotta say, this is next episode. I have already watched the last episode, so I do know how it ends, and I'm gonna say
I have not yet.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically this episode and like most of the next episode are just amazing, and I do think that this series does end almost perfectly. But we'll talk about that next week. Mozz, any final thoughts on tonight's episode?
No, I really dug where this season has gone. It's been a really great ride, and I can't wait till the prerequisite 2 years are done so we can get these characters back.
Oh yeah, because I guarantee you these guys are all coming back to the DC.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think they've announced as much so far.
Yeah. Well, because why this was all done under Marvel auspices, so there's no reason for them to act like these are, that these are the left-handed stepchildren. These are definitely part of what this is part of what they've approved, and now they can bring them in more full board. So we're all excited about that.
And we're right, like you said, they will have an effect on the MCU.
Absolutely.
Or relevance in the MCU.
And we're all looking forward to that. Okay, so Mozz, in the meantime, if people would like to talk to you about the Punisher or Job or Satan, how can they?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzora@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way the way Mozz and Boz once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Cloak and Dagger and any other shows I feel like that are in a broadcast situation in which live tweeting makes sense. At Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIE. ESSER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Oh, dear penitents. The penultimate forgiveness is given to you. Take it. Go forth in peace and sin no more. But when you do, return here one last time for your just punishments. Good night.